On the morning of June 1942, in the ruins of Sevastopol, Senior Lieutenant Lyudmila Pavlichenko lay motionless beneath a pile of broken concrete and shattered timber for over 20 hours. A German sniper had been hunting her for 3 days, one of the Wehrmacht's best marksmen who had killed dozens of Soviet soldiers from concealed positions throughout the city. At 11:47 a.m., Lyudmila spotted a flicker of movement behind a shattered window frame approximately 400 meters away, a shadow that shifted imperceptibly, and a brief glint of light on glass. She adjusted her aim by a millimeter, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger of her Mosin-Nagant rifle. The German sniper slumped forward with a hole through his left eye. The 36th enemy sniper Lyudmila Pavlichenko had killed. Her final count would reach 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers, making her the deadliest female sniper in recorded military history. The Germans gave her a name that would follow her forever, Lady Death. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was born on July 12, 1916, in the town of Bielotserkva, located in what was then the Russian Empire and is now central Ukraine, approximately 80 kilometers south of Kyiv. Her father, Mikhail Pavlichenko, worked in a factory and later served in the Red Army during the Russian Civil War of 1917-1922. Her mother, Elena, worked as a teacher in the local school system. The Russian Empire was collapsing during her birth year. The First World War was devastating Europe, and within 18 months, the Bolshevik Revolution would overthrow the Tsar. When Lyudmila was 14 years old, a neighbor boy mocked her, claiming that shooting was exclusively a male skill that no girl could ever master. She immediately walked to the local wwiihistorys club, the Society for Assistance to Defense, Aircraft, and Chemical Construction, a Soviet paramilitary organization that trained over 36 million civilians in military skills between 1927 and 1948. Within weeks, she was outscoring every male member of the club, and within months, she earned her Voroshilov Sharpshooter badge, one of the highest civilian marksmanship distinctions in the Soviet Union, named after Marshal Kliment Voroshilov. In 1937, at 21 years old, Lyudmila enrolled at Kyiv State University to study history, specializing in the life of Bohdan Khmelnytsky, the 17th-century Cossack hetman who led the 1648 uprising against Polish rule. She had married young to a fellow student named Alexei Pavlichenko and gave birth to her son, Rostislav, in 1932, but the marriage ended before she entered university. By 1941, she was a single mother in her 4th year of studies, planning a quiet academic career researching Ukrainian history. On June 22, 1941, at 3:15 a.m., over 3.8 million Axis soldiers crossed the Soviet border in Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in human history, stretching across an 1,800-mile front. Within the first day, the Luftwaffe destroyed 1,489 Soviet aircraft, 200 of them still on the ground, achieving immediate air superiority. German panzer divisions advanced up to 50 miles per day, and within 5 months, they would reach the outskirts of Moscow itself. Kyiv, where Lyudmila lived, lay directly in the path of Army Group South, commanded by Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt. On the day the invasion was announced over Soviet radio, Lyudmila walked to the nearest military recruitment office at Kyiv University and volunteered for combat duty. The recruitment officer told her the Red Army needed nurses, not female soldiers, as Soviet military doctrine did not officially include women in frontline combat roles. Lyudmila demanded a shooting test, presenting her Voroshilov sharpshooter certification as proof of her qualifications. The officer arranged a demonstration at a nearby range, where a crowd of male soldiers gathered expecting entertainment. Lyudmila fired 5 consecutive shots, placing each bullet in the center of the target at 100 meters. 2 days later, she was assigned to the 25th Chapyev Rifle Division, named after Vasily Chapyev, the legendary Red Army commander who died fighting white forces during the Civil War in 1919. She received a standard-issue Mosin-Nagant Model 90-130 rifle, equipped with a PE-4 power telescopic sight manufactured at the Leningrad Optical Factory. The Mosin-Nagant fired the 7.62x54 MAR cartridge, effective at ranges exceeding 800 meters in skilled hands, and had served as the primary Russian infantry rifle since 1891. She left her 9-year-old son Rostislav with her mother and departed for the front lines near Odessa, 475 kilometers south of Kyiv. The train carrying Lyudmila toward the front passed through Ukrainian countryside, showing the first signs of war. Columns of smoke on the horizon, military convoys clogging the roads, and German aircraft occasionally strafing the railway lines. Odessa, a major Black Sea port city with a pre-war population of 604,000, was the Soviet Union's largest port on the northwestern Black Sea coast and a critical naval base. The city was defended by the separate coastal army under Major General Georgy Safronov, later replaced by Major General Ivan Petrov, comprising approximately 86,000 troops against a Romanian-German force of over 340,000. Romania had joined Operation Barbarossa to reclaim Bessarabia and northern Bukovina, territories the Soviet Union had annexed in June 1940 under the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The Romanian Fourth Army and Third Army, supported by German artillery and air units, began their assault on Odessa on August 5, 1941. Lyudmila arrived in Odessa on July 1, 1941, 5 weeks before the siege began, and was assigned to a rifle company defending the northern approaches. The terrain around Odessa consisted of flat steppe land, endless wheat and sunflower fields interrupted by shallow ravines called balkas that provided natural defensive positions. Major General Petrov, who took command on August 19, reviewed Lyudmila's marksmanship records and assigned her to sniper duties despite her complete lack of combat experience. Lyudmila took up her first combat position on August 8, 1941, near the village of Belyaevka, approximately 30 kilometers north of Odessa's city center. She spent her first full day observing enemy positions through her PE telescopic sight, noting movement patterns, officer locations, and the distances to key landmarks. She identified that the shattered oak tree was 400 meters from her position, the burned farmhouse was 550 meters, and the crossroads near the Romanian forward trench was 700 meters. Her first kill came on August 9, 1941, at 6:23 a.m., when 2 Romanian soldiers emerged from a trench approximately 400 meters away. One soldier lit a cigarette while the other walked toward nearby bushes, neither maintaining proper frontline discipline. Lyudmila placed her crosshairs on the chest of the soldier with the cigarette, exhaled slowly to steady her aim, and squeezed the trigger. The 7.62 bullet traveled 400 meters in approximately half a second, striking the soldier in the center of his chest. Before the second soldier could react, she worked the bolt action, chambered a new round, and fired again, her second kill within 10 seconds of her first. She remained in position for 6 more hours, waiting until darkness to safely withdraw back to Soviet lines. She was 25 years old, and she had just begun her career as a professional killer. The siege of Odessa lasted from August 5 to October 16, 1941, 73 days of continuous combat that cost the Axis forces over 93,000 casualties. The Soviet Black Sea Fleet, operating from Sevastopol 300 kilometers to the east, kept Odessa supplied with ammunition, food, and reinforcements via nightly convoy runs. The cruiser Krasny Kavkaz and destroyer flotilla made over 100 supply runs during the siege, bringing in 15,000 reinforcements and evacuating 30,000 wounded soldiers and civilians. Lyudmila's kill count rose steadily through August and September 1941, 3 more kills on August 10, including a Romanian officer spotted with a map near a forward observation post. By August 31, her confirmed kill count had reached 41 enemy soldiers. By September 15, it had passed 70 confirmed kills, documented by spotters and verified by her commanding officers. She was averaging more than one confirmed kill per day, an exceptional rate that brought her to the attention of the divisional command. Her method was systematic and patient. She would study terrain for hours before selecting a position, calculate distances using her scope's mil-dot reticle, identify high-value targets such as officers and machine gunners, and wait for the optimal moment to fire. The Romanian and German forces became aware of a deadly Soviet sniper operating in the northern sector and assigned their own marksmen to eliminate her. Her first sniper duel occurred in late September 1941 against a Romanian marksman who had killed at least 12 Soviet soldiers over the previous 2 weeks. The Romanian sniper was patient and skilled, never firing from the same position twice and using excellent camouflage discipline. Lyudmila spent 3 days hunting him, analyzing his previous kills to determine his preferred firing positions and movement patterns. On the third day, she deliberately exposed herself briefly in a prepared position, allowing herself to be seen for a fraction of a second. She then crawled through a drainage ditch to a secondary position 50 meters away, where she had prepared a concealed firing point the previous night. Hours passed as she waited motionless, watching her original position through her scope. At 4:47 p.m., she detected movement, the Romanian sniper approaching her original position, believing he had located his target. She placed her crosshairs on his chest and fired a single shot from 300 meters. The Romanian fell and did not move, her first confirmed sniper kill, with at least 35 more enemy snipers to follow. Lyudmila was wounded twice during the siege of Odessa, first by shrapnel from a mortar round that killed 2 soldiers standing beside her, and second by a bullet that grazed her shoulder during a close-quarters engagement when Romanian troops briefly overran her position. Neither wound was serious enough to require evacuation, and she returned to duty within days of each injury. By October 16, 1941, when Soviet forces evacuated Odessa by sea, Lyudmila had recorded 187 confirmed kills, the highest total of any sniper in the Odessa garrison. The evacuation was conducted by the Black Sea Fleet over several nights, with warships ferrying 86,000 troops and 15,000 civilians across the sea to Sevastopol. Lyudmila boarded a transport ship on the night of October 15, leaving behind a city that had cost the Romanian Fourth Army over 17,000 dead and 63,000 wounded. She did not know that her next assignment, the defense of Sevastopol, would be even bloodier. Sevastopol was the primary base of the Soviet Black Sea Fleet, located on the southwestern tip of the Crimean Peninsula at the end of a deep natural harbor. The city had been a major Russian naval fortress since 1783, when it was founded by Prince Grigory Potemkin under orders from Catherine the Great. During the Crimean War of 1853–1856, Sevastopol had withstood an 11-month siege by British, French, and Ottoman forces, a defense that cost the Allies 128,000 casualties. The fortifications had been modernized in the 20th century with concrete bunkers, coastal artillery batteries, and underground ammunition magazines carved into the limestone cliffs. Armored Battery 30, mounting twin 305 guns in a rotating turret, could engage naval targets at ranges exceeding 40 kilometers. Armored Battery 35, similarly equipped, guarded the southern approaches to the city. The Maxim Gorky I and Maxim Gorky II batteries mounted 305 guns salvaged from the old battleship Empress Maria, which had exploded in Sevastopol harbor in 1916. German General Erich von Manstein, commanding the 11th Army, received orders to capture Sevastopol and eliminate the Soviet Black Sea Fleet. Manstein was considered one of the Wehrmacht's most brilliant strategists. the architect of the Ardennes breakthrough plan that had defeated France in 1940. His 11th Army numbered approximately 204,000 troops, supported by Romanian mountain and cavalry divisions. The Luftwaffe's wwiiI Air Corps, commanded by Generaloberst Wolfram von Richthofen, cousin of the famous Red Baron, provided air support with over 600 aircraft. The Soviet defenders, under Vice Admiral Philip Oktyabrsky commanding naval forces and Major General Ivan Petrov commanding ground forces, had approximately 106,000 troops. The terrain favored the defense. Steep hills, deep ravines, and rocky outcroppings created natural fortifications that funneled attackers into killing zones. Lyudmila arrived in Sevastopol on October 17, 1941, and was assigned to the 54th Rifle Regiment defending the northern sector near the Belbek Valley. The first German assault on Sevastopol began on October 30, 1941, with a massive artillery bombardment followed by infantry advances along the northern approaches. German and Romanian troops attacked in waves, supported by Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers that screamed down on Soviet positions. Lyudmila observed the assault through her scope from a concealed position on a rocky hillside, overlooking the main German axis of advance. She began firing at 8:15 a.m., targeting officers, NCOs, and machine gun crews. Her first shot struck a German lieutenant in the chest as he waved his men forward at a range of 450 meters. Her second shot killed a machine gunner who was setting up an MG-34 behind a low stone wall at 380 meters. By noon, she had recorded 11 confirmed kills, German soldiers identified and verified by spotters observing through binoculars. The first German assault failed with over 2,000 casualties, and Manstein ordered his forces to dig in and prepare for a more deliberate offensive. The second assault came in December 1941, coinciding with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, which brought the United States into the war. Manstein attacked with reinforced divisions, supported by the heaviest artillery concentration yet seen in the Crimean campaign. The Germans brought up 280 Mk5 railway guns, 305 Mcheckmade Skoda mortars, and hundreds of medium artillery pieces. Temperatures dropped to -20 degrees Celsius, and both sides suffered from frostbite, disease, and exhaustion. Lyudmila continued her sniper operations despite the brutal cold, lying in frozen positions for hours, her fingers numb on the trigger of her rifle. She developed techniques to prevent her scope from fogging in the cold, breathing away from the eyepiece and keeping the lens covered until the moment of firing. By December 31, 1941, her confirmed kill count had reached 179, averaging more than 1 kill per day since her arrival in Sevastopol. The second German assault also failed, costing Manstein another 10,000 casualties, but Soviet losses were equally severe. The most intense sniper duel of Lyudmila's career occurred in February 1942, against a German marksman credited with over 500 kills on the Eastern Front. German intelligence had identified a deadly Soviet sniper in the northern sector and dispatched their best marksman to eliminate her. Lyudmila first became aware of the hunter on February 14, 1942, when a fellow sniper named Leonid Kitsenko was killed by a single shot through the head from approximately 600 meters. Kitsenko had been experienced and careful. For him to be caught meant the enemy sniper was exceptionally skilled. The following day, a female sniper named Vera, barely 20 years old, was shot through the throat while changing positions. Lyudmila analyzed the angles of both kills, the trajectory of the bullets, and the positions of the bodies to determine her enemy's likely firing locations. For 3 days, she hunted him through the ruins of the northern fortifications, never staying in one position for more than 2 hours. She set traps, helmets on sticks, fake muzzle flashes from empty positions, but the German did not take the bait. On the 4th day, she reversed her tactics, Instead of hunting, she let herself be hunted. She selected a slightly exposed position in a bombed-out building and allowed brief movement to be detected, then abandoned the position entirely. She crawled through a drainage pipe to a secondary position beneath a collapsed wall, where she had prepared a concealed firing point with an unobstructed view of her original location. She waited for 8 hours without moving, barely breathing, her eye fixed to her scope. At 4:47 p.m., she detected movement 300 meters to the east, a shape shifting behind a shattered window, a rifle barrel emerging. The German sniper was watching her original position, waiting for her to return. She placed her crosshairs on the exposed portion of his head, held her breath, and fired. The German slumped forward, dead before the sound of the shot reached his position. When she recovered his body that evening, she found his rifle, a precision Mauser K98K with a ZF-42 scope, and his kill book recording 527 confirmed kills. He was the most dangerous opponent she had ever faced, and she had beaten him through patience, deception, and an iron nerve. By March 1942, Lyudmila's kill count had reached 257 confirmed enemy soldiers, making her the highest-scoring sniper in the Sevastopol garrison. The Soviet military newspaper Krasnaya Zvezda, Red Star, published articles about her exploits, calling her the avenging angel of Sevastopol. Propaganda posters featuring her image appeared in factories and recruitment offices across the Soviet Union, encouraging women to contribute to the war effort. The attention brought increased danger. German commanders specifically ordered their snipers to eliminate the famous Soviet markswoman. Over the following months, she killed a total of 36 enemy snipers, more than any other Soviet sniper during the entire war. Each kill was documented by spotters, verified by commanding officers, and recorded in official military records. By early June 1942, her confirmed count reached 309 kills, a number that would never be surpassed by any female sniper in history. On June 7, 1942, the Germans launched Operation Sturfang, Sturgeon Catch, the final assault on Sevastopol that would employ the largest concentration of artillery in the history of warfare. Manstein had assembled over 1,300 artillery pieces, including siege guns of unprecedented size. The 800 Mschwerer Gustav railway gun, weighing 1,350 tons, fired 7-ton shells that could penetrate 30 feet of concrete, the largest artillery piece ever used in combat. Its sister gun, Dora, was also deployed, along with the 600 Karl Jarrett self-propelled mortars that fired 2,200-kilogram shells. Over 600 Luftwaffe aircraft flew continuous bombing missions, dropping more ordnance on Sevastopol in 1 week than the Luftwaffe had dropped on London during the entire Blitz. The bombardment was so intense that it could be heard 100 kilometers away on the Turkish coast. Soviet positions were systematically obliterated, bunkers collapsed, trenches buried, entire defensive lines erased from existence. Lyudmila was in the front lines when a German mortar round exploded within 5 meters of her position on June 7, 1942. The blast threw her through the air, and shrapnel tore into her back and both legs in over a dozen places. Her eardrums ruptured from the concussion, and she lost consciousness almost immediately. Medics dragged her to a field hospital beneath the city, located in the underground tunnels carved into Sevastopol's limestone cliffs. Soviet surgeons operated under primitive conditions, limited anesthesia, inadequate lighting, shells exploding overhead. Several shrapnel fragments were removed from her legs and back, but others remained embedded too close to her spine to extract safely. The doctors told her she would never return to combat. The nerve damage was too severe, and the risk of paralysis too great. On June 26, 1942, Lyudmila Pavlichenko was evacuated from Sevastopol aboard the submarine L-6, one of the last vessels to escape the doomed city. She was carried aboard on a stretcher, unable to walk, watching through the periscope as the fortress she had defended for 8 months disappeared beneath the horizon. Sevastopol fell on July 4, 1942, after 250 days of siege, one of the longest in modern warfare. The final Soviet defenders made their last stand at the coastal batteries on Cape Kherson, fighting until they ran out of ammunition. Over 95,000 Soviet soldiers were captured. Most would die in German prisoner-of-war camps, where the mortality rate for Soviet POWs exceeded 57%. An estimated 230,000 people died during the siege, soldiers on both sides, sailors of the Black Sea Fleet, and civilians caught in the bombardment. The city itself was 95% destroyed, reduced to rubble by 8 months of continuous shelling and bombing. Lyudmila had escaped just in time, but she left behind the graves of dozens of friends and comrades. She spent the following weeks in a military hospital in Krasnodar, undergoing additional surgeries and beginning the slow process of rehabilitation. The doctors were clear. Her combat career was over, but she would walk again, though never without pain. She was 26 years old, she had killed 309 enemy soldiers, and her war, as she had known it, was finished. In August 1942, Lyudmila received unexpected orders to report to Moscow for a new assignment. The Soviet leadership had decided that her fame could serve a different purpose, not as a weapon of war, but as a weapon of diplomacy. The Soviet Union desperately needed the Western Allies to open a second front in Europe, forcing Germany to divide its forces between East and West. Churchill and Roosevelt had promised an invasion of France, but they kept delaying, first to 1942, then to 1943, then perhaps to 1944. Stalin was furious. The Soviet Union was bearing over 80% of the total casualties in the war against Nazi Germany. A Soviet delegation would travel to Britain and America, and at its center would be Lyudmila Pavlichenko, a decorated hero who could put a human face on Soviet suffering. Lyudmila arrived in London in August 1942, still walking with a limp from her Sevastopol wounds. She was one of only 2 women in the Soviet delegation, accompanied by a group of diplomats and military officers. The British press was fascinated. They had never seen a female combat soldier, let alone one who had killed 309 enemy troops. Reporters crowded around her at every appearance, asking about her kills, her methods, her feelings about ending human lives. She answered with quiet dignity, "I am a soldier, I do what soldiers do, I defend my country." But British journalists focused obsessively on her appearance, her uniform, her lack of makeup, her hairstyle. One reporter asked why she did not wear a shorter skirt to show off her legs. Lyudmila fixed him with a cold stare and replied, "I am here to ask for your help. While you worry about the length of my skirt, my comrades are dying." The room fell silent, and the reporter did not ask another question. The Soviet delegation arrived in Washington, D.C., in late August 1942. Lyudmila was one of the first Soviet citizens to visit America during the war, and certainly the first female combat veteran. American newspapers ran sensational headlines. "Russian girl sniper killed 309 Nazis," and "Lady Death visits America." She was invited to speak at rallies, universities, and labor union meetings in cities across the country: New York, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, San Francisco. At each appearance, she delivered the same blunt message: open the second front or more Soviets will die. Her speeches were far more direct than American audiences expected from a woman, or from anyone representing a foreign government. "I am 25 years old," she told crowds. "At that age, I have already killed 309 fascist invaders. Do not tell me that women cannot fight." On September 25, 1942, Lyudmila was invited to the White House to meet President Franklin D. Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. The meeting was initially scheduled as a brief photo opportunity, a handshake, a few polite words, then departure. But Eleanor Roosevelt was captivated by the young Soviet sniper and invited her to stay at the White House for several days. Eleanor had championed women's rights for decades, fighting for women to have opportunities in government, business, and every profession. Lyudmila represented something unprecedented, a woman who had fought and killed on equal terms with men. The two women talked for hours through translators, discussing war, peace, politics, and the role of women in society. A friendship formed that night that would last until Eleanor's death 20 years later. They would correspond regularly, exchanging letters about politics, women's rights, and their hopes for the post-war world. Lyudmila's most famous speech came in Chicago at a rally organized by the Congress of Industrial Organizations, one of America's largest labor unions. Thousands of workers packed the auditorium to see the famous Soviet sniper. She walked to the podium wearing her uniform, medals pinned to her chest, her face calm but her eyes burning with intensity. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice clear and cold. "I am 25 years old. At the front, I have already killed 309 fascist invaders." She paused, letting the number sink in. "Do you not think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" The auditorium erupted, not in anger but in thunderous applause. Men and women leaped to their feet, cheering and weeping, finally understanding the sacrifice happening half a world away. The speech was reprinted in newspapers across America and became one of the most quoted statements of the entire war. Americans, moved by her story, sent gifts from across the country: flowers, letters, chocolates, jewelry, and personal items. A group of workers in New York gave her a Colt automatic pistol engraved with her name. The International Fur Workers Union presented her with a full-length beaver coat worth thousands of dollars. Folk singer Woody Guthrie wrote a song about her called Miss Pavlichenko, with lyrics that included, "More than 300 Nazis fell by your gun." She was invited to Hollywood, where she met actors and filmmakers, and to universities, where she addressed students and faculty. Her 2-month American tour generated enormous publicity and put significant pressure on the Roosevelt administration to accelerate plans for the Second Front. The invasion of Normandy would not come until June 1944, nearly 2 years later, but Lyudmila's voice had been heard. Lyudmila returned to the Soviet Union in October 1942 as one of the most famous soldiers in the country. She was awarded the Gold Star of the Hero of the Soviet Union, the nation's highest military honor, on October 25, 1943. She also received the Order of Lenin, the Order of the Red Banner, and numerous other Soviet and foreign decorations. At 27 years old, she was the most decorated female soldier in Soviet history. But her combat days were over. The wounds she had sustained at Sevastopol prevented any return to the front lines. Instead, she was assigned to train a new generation of snipers at a specialized school located in a forest outside Moscow. The sniper training school consisted of wooden barracks, classrooms, shooting ranges, and mock battlefield positions hidden among birch and pine trees. Lyudmila taught everything she had learned through 18 months of combat: position selection, distance calculation, wind adjustment, breathing control, and patience. She emphasized the psychological aspects of sniping: the ability to wait motionless for hours, the discipline to control fear, and the mental fortitude to kill without hesitation. "Hesitation kills," she told her students. "Not the enemy, but you, your friends, your comrades." Many of the snipers she trained would serve with distinction on the Eastern Front, recording dozens of confirmed kills. The Soviet Union employed over 2,000 female snipers during the war, more than any other nation, and they collectively recorded over 12,000 confirmed kills. Approximately 500 of these women died in combat. The war ended on May 8, 1945, with Germany's unconditional surrender. The Soviet Union had paid a staggering price: 27 million dead, the highest toll of any nation in any war in human history. Over 8.6 million of these were military personnel. The rest were civilians who died from combat, starvation, disease, and Nazi atrocities. Nearly every family in the Soviet Union lost at least one member during the conflict. Lyudmila had survived, but the war had left scars, physical and psychological, that would never fully heal. She suffered from chronic pain due to the shrapnel fragments still embedded near her spine. She experienced nightmares, flashbacks, and episodes of depression and anxiety, symptoms now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder. She drank heavily to cope, a pattern that would continue for the rest of her life. After the war, Lyudmila completed her interrupted studies at Kyiv State University, finally earning her history degree in 1945. She hoped to pursue the academic career she had planned before the war, a quiet life of research and teaching. But her fame made anonymity impossible, and her trauma made normal life difficult. She worked as a research assistant at the Soviet Navy headquarters in Moscow, reviewing documents and preparing reports. She attended official functions, gave occasional speeches, and served as a living symbol of Soviet courage. She married twice after the war, first to a fellow sniper from the training school, then to a Soviet army officer named Alexei Krasovin, but neither marriage lasted. Her relationship with her son, Rostislav, who had spent the war years with his grandmother, remained distant. She had left him as a 9-year-old boy and returned as a stranger carrying invisible wounds he could not understand. Her friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt continued through the Cold War, despite the growing hostility between their nations. They exchanged letters for years, discussing politics, women's rights, and their hopes for a peaceful future. In 1957, Eleanor visited the Soviet Union and arranged to meet Lyudmila in Moscow, their first reunion in 15 years. They talked for hours, two old friends bridging the divide between superpowers. It was the last time they would see each other in person. Eleanor died on November 7, 1962, at the age of 78. In one of her final letters to Lyudmila, she wrote, "You changed minds, you changed hearts, you changed history." Lyudmila kept that letter until the day she died. In 1969, Lyudmila published her memoirs, titled I Am a Sniper, Sniper. The book provided a detailed account of her experiences at Odessa and Sevastopol, her sniper duels with German marksmen, and her tour of America. She wrote honestly about the psychological toll of killing, refusing to glorify war or present herself as anything other than a soldier who had done her duty. "I am not proud of killing," she wrote. "I am proud of surviving, but the kills themselves, they are a burden I will carry to my grave." The book became a bestseller in the Soviet Union and was later translated into multiple languages. Lyudmila Pavlichenko died on October 10, 1974, in Moscow. She was 58 years old, her life shortened by years of chronic pain, psychological trauma, and heavy drinking. The official cause of death was listed as a stroke. She was buried with full military honors in Novodevichy Cemetery, one of Moscow's most prestigious burial grounds, where Soviet leaders, famous artists, and national heroes are interred. Her grave is marked with a simple headstone bearing her name, her dates, and her title, Hero of the Soviet Union. Her record of 309 confirmed kills remains unbroken by any female sniper in recorded military history. The closest female competitor was Lyuba Makarova, another Soviet sniper, who recorded 84 confirmed kills. Among male snipers, Finnish soldier Simo Heihe holds the all-time record with over 500 confirmed kills during the 1930-91940 Winter War. The highest-scoring Soviet male sniper was Ivan Sidorenko, with 500 confirmed kills, followed by Nikolai Yakovlevich Ilyin with 496. Lyudmila's record among female snipers is likely to stand permanently. No modern conflict has produced comparable conditions for sniper warfare. In 1976, a Soviet commemorative postage stamp was issued bearing her image, one of only a handful of women to be honored in this way. In 2015, a biographical film titled Battle for Sevastopol, Bitva za Sevastopol, was released in Russia and Ukraine. The film starred Ukrainian actress Yulia Peresild as Lyudmila and grossed over $9 million at the box office. It brought her story to a new generation of viewers who had never heard of the deadliest female sniper in history. In Sevastopol, a bronze statue was erected in 2018 depicting her in a prone sniper position overlooking the sea. Streets in Moscow, Kyiv, and Sevastopol bear her name. The Soviet Union that Lyudmila defended ceased to exist on December 26, 1991, when it dissolved into 15 independent nations. The ideology she believed in, Soviet communism, has been largely abandoned. But her legacy transcends politics. She proved that women could fight effectively in combat, a lesson that modern militaries around the world have finally begun to accept. She demonstrated the psychological complexity of killing, the necessity of it in wartime, and the permanent scars it leaves on those who do it. And she showed that a single person, armed with courage and conviction, could change the course of history. The final words belong to Lyudmila herself, from an interview she gave near the end of her life. The young people today do not understand what we went through. They cannot understand. They have grown up in peace, in comfort. They have never known what it is to be hungry, to be cold, to watch their friends die. I do not blame them. I am glad they do not understand. It means we did our job. We fought so they would not have to fight. We died so they would not have to die. But sometimes I wish someone remembered. Sometimes I wish someone understood what it cost us. Lyudmila Pavlichenko. Born July 12, 1916, in Bila Tserkva, Ukraine. Died October 10, 1974, in Moscow, Russia. Hero of the Soviet Union. Order of Lenin's. 309 confirmed kills. 36 enemy snipers eliminated. The deadliest female sniper in recorded history. Lady Death. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to wwiirecords as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.